Yes. Yeah, we put that in there so that people can find it. I wish you guys all the luck. Thank you very much.
All right, we'll call this to order. Please join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join Commissioner Kirschner in a short prayer.
Please bow your heads in a moment of prayer here. Heavenly Father, we thank you for a early spring day. I think yesterday or today is the first day of spring. Spring hope's eternal, and our hopes are with you. We ask that you give us the wisdom to make the decisions that are in the best interest of those we serve. We also ask in a special way that you watch over all those men and women who are protecting our freedoms and their families. We ask this through your Son. Amen.
Amen.
Roll call. Here.
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 I'll accept a motion to approve the digital audio-video recording of the previous board session from Thursday, March 14th, 2019.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Thomas?
Yes. Thanks for the OSS nomination, by the way.
Oh, you're welcome.
And yes, Mike, there will be some pay back. Any further adjustments to the agenda?
One.
Yes.
Driveway permits.
New business or?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'd like to discuss AEZ in the matter of old business.
Okay, airport BFA pre-application update. Old business.
Okay. Anything else for adjustments? Good. All right. First on the agenda is an update on Wolf Creek. Who would like to be the lead speaker on Wolf Creek today?
I think Beth would like to be the lead speaker, but I'm going to. David, how are you? Oh, maybe that was a joke. Huh? Maybe. All right, so I just wanted to give an update to the board.
Everybody knows Mark Zimmerman, our engineer.
Hello, how are you? On Wolf Creek and the petition project. The work has been completed on the project, and we are working on the bonding, which I think is for a year afterwards. And then the next step is to work on the assessments and the assessment schedule. The estimate for the project when Feller Finch did the estimate was about $315,000. It ended up about $269,000, right around $270,000 for completion of the log jams. We did take one of the major sandbars out along State Route 12 and all the dead and leaning trees. So the next thing we have to do is the assessments. We currently have a contract with Feller Finch. It was part of their original contract to do the assessments. It was decided by the board a couple of years ago that they wanted to go ahead and have all the mailings and things done through that process. The estimate for that I think is about $12,500. I think maybe it was $15,000 in that, between $12,500 and $15,000 to do the assessments. We are working with them, hopefully to cut that cost down by providing them all of the information and maybe just have them do the mailings. Beth and I are working on basically a paper on what does maintenance look like. What is maintenance going to look like for Wolf Creek? Most of our projects for ditch maintenance, whether they are open ditches or tile systems, are for the a lot of dip outs, a lot of clean outs. a lot of washouts. This project was not identified as that type of project. So we need to kind of identify what we're looking for as far as brush treatment might look like, or tree growth might look like, or future sandbars if they develop. Basically keeping obstructions, which is what the petition was for, removing obstructions and anything that is an obstruction or could be an obstruction in the ditch. So we're working on that, basically what maintenance will look like. My understanding is that for the assessments, Julie at the auditor's office needs to have her information. Do you remember by 1st of August?
It would be best. September 1 is legal.
Okay, September 1 is legal, so we're gonna try to get that by August. We have generated that several times now, but because parcels change and this watershed is so large, we are, right before we do it, the new assessment schedule, we'll download the current ownership information and get that, so that we have the ownership as current as possible, and the acreage for the assessment. So, all in all, the assessment schedule that was sent out in 2013, which was the estimate, that big mailing that we did through this office, it's going to be relatively close, within some percentage points of what that was. Of course, the project took a bit longer to do than was originally anticipated, so prices went up, costs went up, log jams got bigger, trees got bigger, just through the nature of the project. So with that, I don't know if you guys had any questions, but I just wanted to give an update on where we were with Wolf Creek. So
Some of the feedback I got is that it is flowing better. So I don't know if we've seen any tendency of it to stay in its banks.
on average, all of our bridges that are on Wolf Creek have exposed areas now that were never exposed before. So, I mean, I would agree. So.
And then I guess, is there anybody that's here for Wolf Creek that has any questions for Mark or Beth at this point? Pat Sugar's in the house.
Yes, I'm coming before the commissioners and Mr. Zimmerman on Wolf Creek, which the work has been done. And we agree that it did improve the flow of water. Which in review from, I'm gonna go back a few years. In 2008 and 2010, we had a joint county proposal, which Hancock, Seneca passed it, and Sandusky failed it. This was that's what promoted, because it was failed, start to get the petition on 2012 of the log jam sandbars and obstacles out of the creek. Also, due to that, there was in the paper of roughly 7,000 parcels you had.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was like, there was a cost that you estimated of around 315,000. Since we had their meeting to do that with the joint, wanted to save this project some money for the assessments. If you divide the 7,000 into the 315, it comes out to $45 per parcel, which would make it simpler for us and the assessments to get it done. Also, you'd have your 20% of maintenance cost would come out $9 per parcel, and I don't think anybody can object by going to that route instead of doing this extra cost of going all the way through with another company and just run by $45 per parcel, and we'd have our maintenance and we could get it started now.
I guess Mark would speak to this, but I just remember back in 13 when we did that estimate, I'm not sure that legally what our path of options are, because of, it's been a long process on this whole project, and I'm not sure we would have the means to legally look at setting it up differently. I guess
Yeah, I'm not a lawyer, so I mean, my understanding is that when the final hearing was done and the assessment method was established. That is the assessment method that is to be used on the project. But like all sections of code and all sections of law, they're subject to revision and subject to the courts and subject to lawyers. If it can be changed, I mean, that would be up to you guys completely. I mean, if you wanted to try to change the method of assessment. We marketed this project years ago as a flood control project, not necessarily as a drainage project. Which is why we looked at the areas, we did buffer areas, so those that are closest to the stream pay more because they receive more benefit from having less flooded ground. So you took the channel, and then people that are within 500 feet of the stream pay an assessment, people that are within 1,000 feet pay a different assessment, and then all the rest of them pay a different assessment. One of the biggest issues I could see with that type of assessment is that we have that number of parcels, but understand that, and I'm not going to throw out a number, but a significant number of those parcels are individual lots in the city of Fostoria. And so, you know, while you've got a 40-acre parcel or a 60-acre parcel that is directly adjacent to the ditch, that is receiving huge benefit from not being flooded anymore, or being flooded less, than it would have been before. We have those areas that are so significantly away that they're contributing, so they need to pay. Their water's contributing to the watershed, but are receiving no flood control. So, you know, we had worked out with the city of Fostoria back in 2013 that we would handle the city of Fostoria as one parcel of land. And the city of Fostoria, since they assess their landowners a drainage tax, a drainage fee, that they would pay for all of their landowners out of that drainage fee. So there would be significant obstacles to, I mean, so basically what you're saying, if say you just divide it by 45, then the person that has a 100-acre parcel is paying the same as a person that has a fifth of an acre parcel. So is there equity in that? I mean, that's a decision for the board. So,
But do you have anything to add?
if you want it, I can certainly check to see if
I
that can be
think
changed.
we've made that decision.
So.
I think Pat has more, I don't have anything to add yet.
Okay, you're gonna go down and you're gonna get away from the stream. Those will not even get included because after you get a 20% of the maintenance costs, if it's under a certain amount, they will not get charged. So that is still gonna come back to the main landowners to pay for it because they won't be charged for a maintenance fee because their assessment's gonna be too low.
Yeah, there are actually minimum
See,
requirements.
there's a minimum, so why
Right. No.
do
The minimum the other way. So say I've got and say I've got a parcel of land and say I've got 100 acres and my assessment's $1,000. Okay, just say I've got no idea. Of course, that's met a threshold. Now say I've got a parcel of land that is just a tenth of an acre. All right, I've got this little small lot, or you know, probably not out in the rural area, but 1 acre lot. And say my assessment comes out to be 75 cents, okay? Or $3 or $2, whatever it is. By law, the minimum assessment is $10. Okay, so you're gonna pay $10. So even if your assessment were 50 cents, you're going to pay $10. And then we establish maintenance at
A maximum of 20% of that.
a maximum of 20% of that. So say we just collected the maximum 20% in the fund, and that money is held for doing future maintenance, then you would pay $10 plus $2 of maintenance fee, you would pay $12. So what we did do though is there are some, because we use our tax parcels and tax maps, there are some slivers of land, some little gaps and laps where a parcel of land may be 0.0025 acre. I mean, so it is insignificant. It's not really even a parcel of land. I took all those and I took them out, all right, because it has to be a house lot. So basically what I said is anything smaller than, I think I said a tenth of an acre, 0.1 acre, which is not much larger than this, pretty small piece of ground, that we threw those out. So while I am saying that there are minimums that you're gonna pay if you have just a small little lot, you're still gonna pay an assessment, a minimum of $10, plus your $2 if it goes all the way to the 20%. So you'll pay $12. That being said, if there's this little tiny sliver, or when we zoned, there was a parcel of land that when we split it up into Zone 1, Zone 2, and Zone 3, and there's just this little, I threw those out. I'm not gonna charge somebody $12 for a footprint, okay? And there had to be a number somewhere, and it was reasonable to me that the smallest lots we have are 1/10 of an acre, and so we're just gonna maintain that anything smaller than 1/10 of an acre, which is an insignificant amount anyhow, so.
Thank you. So maintenance will begin,
Well, maintenance will begin when the project is accepted, which is as soon as we get the assessments done. So, it really, we are still working under this period of a year of bond retention. Okay, so if anything happens major-wise in a year, which there shouldn't, I mean, we've removed the log jams and we've removed the dead and leaning trees. But if something big from way off the area falls into the ditch, they're obligated to come and take care of that. And that was probably a couple of months ago. So probably through winter, which is about the same time people start seeing. I mean, do you remember?
So the timeline is,
Yeah.
in August, you'll see the final assessments. The commissioners will approve those final assessments. And at that time, when you're approving the final assessments, you'll approve the maintenance agreement. So then our board will accept it then, or we don't have a choice, but we're taking on, because we run the maintenance program in the county.
Right.
So about August, and then the taxes will be submitted to Julie in August. The tax bills will go out to the taxpayers in January of 2020. Right, and we have the bond in place to carry us through till February of 2020 or 2020, or February of 2020 or January of 2020. So then next winter, we anticipate running our first round of inspections to figure out what maintenance should do next spring. So 1 year from now. And we believe we're safe for any flooding impact in this interim stage because of the bond that's in place, so.
Beth Deesh from the Conservation District for the record. And,
Yeah, and I just want to say, through this entire process, it's been a really good teamwork with Beth, with the Conservation Office. While the county engineer, and the way Section 6131 of the Ohio Revised Code works, just to kind of explain it, there is Ohio law. It's called the Ditch Petition Law. It's a law that was established back in the 1950s. Not one word of that law has been changed since 1950. And it shows. It's a very difficult, poorly read, poorly written law. Way outdated, but what that law does is it gives the county commissioners the ability to order. There are very few things that they can order me to do. As
Enjoyable as that might be.
what's that? Okay, very few things they can enjoy ordering me to do. No, we got a great relationship. You don't have to order me to do anything. We work well together. But in Ohio law, there are very few things, and this is one of them, that the commissioners can actually order me to do this. I have no choice but to do it. I've been ordered by the Board of County Commissioners. So that order came through, and trying to navigate this big of a project, Beth and the Conservation Office have been indispensable, not only for working on it, but also just as sounding board. Beth's a very reasonable person, and I like to talk to reasonable people so we get good ideas on things to do. So, but I just want to thank, the Conservation Office and Beth specifically for the work that, she did and they did on this project to make it happen. So, we're, the project's done. Now we start with the mechanics of assessments. We're going to minimize that as much as we can. I'm going to try to absorb some of that through county funds, and we did receive some benefit on our bridges and our culverts, certainly. So I hate spending people's money.
Yeah.
So and we did a lot of that. in this project. So,
So in the interim, if there is an issue, are they calling your office or are they calling Beth's office?
well, technically, they should be calling the commissioners, but call me.
We'll order them.
Jason, you got that?
Me. Call the engineer's office, so we'll,
Because it would relate back to the bonding.
you're just
Correct.
gonna call me anyhow.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
so, but I just.
So usually they're less angry at the second phone call. You know? They're really angry at the first one. You're going to get the brunt of that, and then they're going to call me and be a lot more calmed down. That's my
Start with
experience,
your-
anyhow. So.
Start with your township trustee.
No. Oh yeah. All right. Start with your trustees, so, especially in Adams. So in Loudonworth. I know you're here somewhere. Oh, there you are. Like I know you're here. I saw you walk in.
Anything else about Wolf Creek? Jason, anything you want to add about that?
It has improved the flow. I do notice the big rains we did have, it didn't come out of bank as far. Didn't cross the road in places it normally does. That's definitely helped. Hopefully we get this on maintenance and we don't have to go through this whole process again.
Yeah, just a little history, and I know there's a lot going on, but I think it's important to share information. So, when I started working for the county in '91, all right, my first job when I worked at the Soil and Water Office, the Conservation Office, that's where I started my career with the county. My first job was to work with Elaine Knutson, who was an assistant prosecutor for the county prosecutor's office, to get Wolf Creek off of was it a state or a federal injunction, so that landowners could get their own 401 and 404 EPA permits to do work. Wolf Creek has literally, well, you're living it. How long has Wolf Creek been, if I may?
I am the
Well, he
only-
knows, he's the brains. So.
I'm the only one left on the original steering committee that started Wolf Creek in 1967.
Okay, so the year I was born. All
That's
right.
how long it was,
Yeah.
and we had it all ready to go in the late 70s. Everybody took, 90% of the people took all the brush off. It was all ready to go before it went to the court in Toledo. And when it went to Toledo, it threw it out of court, and it never got put on maintenance, and everything grew right back up almost the way it was. And so that's where it is up today.
So it's been a long time. So, and it was just so all that time up until '91, it was under court order not to do any work on it. We got that lifted. Some landowners were able to do some work on their own. Most landowners chose not to. So the work that some people did was for naught, because they would clean their area and it would dead end into somebody that refused to do their section. That is why when you get involved in section 6131 or 37 for these joint county or these county ditches, they're required by law to go on maintenance, because we don't ever want to do this again. We don't want to do this again. It happened, in the 60s. Things were cleaned, they were cleared, things probably were operational pretty good. Never went on maintenance because of the courts. And here we are doing this again, spending $300,000 of our taxpayers' money. I'm opposed to that. So we maintain it, and we maintain it for a few dollars a year, every year. Walk it, canoe it, whatever you need to do. If there are problems, if there's log jams forming, if there are obstructions forming, we get rid of them while they're cheap instead of when they're expensive. So maintenance is perpetual. I'm really glad that we got this. It by no means is it a 100% solve of the flooding problem out there. There are so many more things we could do. Pat knows that. So many more things we could do. But we had to keep it reasonable. At some point the cost would not have made any sense. So,
I had a question.
Sure.
I live on 108,
okay.
and Wolf Creek is by my house.
Okay.
And I was wondering if that was part of the whole cleaning out, because that creek needs a good cleaning too. And has it gone all the way to Hancock County line or not?
No, it did not.
Why not?
Well, that's a good question. So, the original petition asked for the project to go from Bettsville to not Amsden, Elevator.
County line.
Thank you, the county line. So during the initial review, during there are multiple hearings that are had. There's a preliminary hearing where we just kind of went through everything, they're viewing, and then a final hearing. And at the final hearing, we have the ability, the commissioners do, and it was under my recommendation, to alter, change, course, basically alter things for the project. And on my recommendation, we chose to go from State Route 18 to Bettsville instead of all the way down to county line. And the reason for that is that while at State Route 18, I don't know how familiar you guys are with the area, State Route 18 bridge is a confluence of 4 different watersheds of Wolf Creek. So from State Route 18 north, there is this Wolf Creek channel. Okay, it's a big channel that goes all the way through Bettsville. There is a main channel, all right? And if you go south of State Route 18, right around where Loudon Meadows Golf Course is, there are actually 4 watersheds, 3 big ones and 1 small one, that all meet up together there. And if you run the hydraulics, which I did, on all 4 of those watersheds, the stream that goes from State Route 18 to county line is not the significant stream. It is not the stream that contributes the most water to the watershed. That one is a big fat watershed that does not have a defined channel per se. So in order to clean that channel, which is to me the main watershed because that's contributing the most flow engineering wise, we would be cleaning out a tree instead of a tree trunk, which is not possible to clean every single branch of the tree. Now we could have gone and said, okay, we're just going to do that main line anyhow, but that is not the main line. And because even 100% improvement, 100% improvement to that section, to that watershed, 100% would have at best improved things by 1/3, at very best. And to me, the money wasn't there. I don't like spending taxpayers' money. So you look at the benefit, the cost it's going to cost. You look at the benefit you're going to get. And if we were to clean every channel that contributes, and there are 4, but 3 major ones, 2 major ones, 1 big one and 1 small one. If we did the main one, it'd be almost impossible because there are so many branches to it. There's no defined channel. If we do the defined channel, we're not improving the actual watershed. So I said, well, the most reasonable thing to do is cut it off right here. And that's why that decision was made. To look at it, you're right. You look and say, well, here's the channel. But when you run the hydraulics on that channel, it is not the major contributing watershed to that confluence, to where all those channels come together. And I did not think that the cost I didn't think the benefit would outweigh the cost.
Well, there's a lot of litter that collects in all the trees and stuff from the landfill. So I thought maybe if the trees weren't there, maybe it would not collect and look so bad.
Yeah, and understand too that what we did was dead and leaning trees. So we didn't take any live trees out unless they were eminently ready to fall.
There's quite a bit though, a lot of ash trees.
Yeah. So you can get people to burn more firewood, come cut these trees down.
Oh,
Ash is good burning wood, so.
We have permission.
So, yeah, it's just at some point we had to say where at what point does the benefit and the cost where there is still a benefit to what we're doing here. It's very difficult in this county anywhere to say that drainage, flood control is not a benefit. We're flat. When you drive up 101 and you can basically see the stacks for Davis-Besse Power Plant, we are flat. All right, so we need drainage. We need water to move. But there have to be limits on what we do. That's why. So I can stand here and talk for hours.
Thank you for the update.
We're ordering.
Apparently you guys are done listening. So. I get that at home too. So. Get on the record. I hope my wife isn't watching.
Mark's famous.
I have popcorn in the back room, I go get it.
Oh, awesome. You have a movie?
The famous line is, "My job is to talk to you, your job is to listen. If you finish before I do, please raise your hand."
Yeah, there you go.
Before we cut Mark loose, can I just, because it's just a brief update on this driveway permit thing, because he was a part of the meeting. I was
Sure.
okay.
Sure, absolutely.
So I added that under our adjustments, and that was just to say that down the road, I'll be bringing more information to share with the two of you, but as our representative on updating of subdivision regulations.
Yeah, you want me to just give 2 minutes? Or no?
We're gonna try, yeah. No,
Yeah,
please,
it's gonna be
please
more
do.
than 2 minutes.
But I told him I would
Okay,
check in
so
with Derek.
another part of what we do in my office is we maintain the tax map office, the tax office. So basically, every piece of property that transfers, every legal description, every survey that comes through Seneca County is authorized by my office, and we look at and see. Well, we put rules in place through our Regional Planning Commission, which Charlene is here, when we started the commission in 1996, and have updated those rules and regulations several times throughout. But we are constantly finding in the modern age, in modern times, with modern technology, that surveyors are able to provide us information much quicker than we can get it back to them. They have technology that's getting it to us quickly. We have rules and regulations that, you know, some of what we do and some of what government does with the checks and balances is supposed to go slow on purpose. To let people vet, right? Slow it all down, let people have their think and say, all right? So we don't want to just say, turn your survey in, we'll turn it around, we'll approve it. But there are many things that we can do to assist them and make the process go a little faster. One of those things is that we require driveway access permits before we'll approve a parcel. So we want to make sure that somebody isn't going to build a house in the bottom of a hill where somebody's going to come over a hill and hit them. They're not trying to put a driveway on our bridge, so when I have to replace the bridge, I cut off their access. You know, lots of different things we look at, mostly for safety, some for, you know, just reasonableness. So in order to do that, since we also do the driveway permits for everybody in the county, well, not in the cities, for all the rural areas, we look at all the driveway permits and size the tiles as we go out and look at them. So we get a permit in, we go out and look at them. We size the tile, we send it. If it's on a township road to the township, well, townships meet, you know, like every other week, so it may have to sit for 2 weeks until they have the opportunity to look at it. Then they send it back to us. Then we take any comments they had, then we send it to county commissioners because they have the final authority. They are the authority for actually approving. I recommend they approve. So sometimes surveys are waiting 4 weeks before they can get a driveway permit. And a lot of it is because the process of sending it. So we have been requested, and we're gonna check with the prosecutor to see if it's possible that the end step of sending it to the commissioners for approval can end at my office. And that once we sign off on it and approve it, it's done. If that authority can be transferred to me, you know, if it can, in 28 years of working for the county, one permit was overridden. And that was pretty political, I think. And it wasn't this board. It was none of these guys. One permit.
Another again, huh?
So, no, it wasn't even this board. No, it was a long time ago. So if it can end with me, that would knock several weeks, you know, at least a couple of weeks off that process, anything we can do. So, you know, that's why we'll be looking at that and making a request from the prosecutor to see. If it can't be, it can't be. But if it can be, you know, and we can transfer that authority here, then my signature will be the approval instead of the recommendation. Anything else?
I committed to reaching out to Derek on that, so there you know
How'd I do?
why, so when
Okay.
it comes back to us.
How'd I do?
Excellent.
2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes. See. Yeah. We haven't hit daylight savings time on this clock.
You're timing my calendar.
Oh, that's usually the way it is, so.
All right, thank you. Thank
Anything
you,
else
Val.
while I'm here?
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
So-
Pat for
Pat, thank you.
everybody being involved in this
Thanks,
project.
sir.
Okay,
See you tonight.
fiscal year 2019 CDBG grant program hearing. This is a hearing, do we need to sign in? Excellent. Thanks, Jason. Thanks, Charlene.
Okay, so today is the first of two public hearings for the fiscal year or program year 2019 CDBG, which is Community Development Block Grant for Small Cities allocation. Seneca County is an allocation county. We've been allocated $150,000 for the 2019 program year, and I'm just here to tell you a little bit about it and explain the next steps. First of all, the Community Development Block Grant Allocation Program can be used for a lot of things, and then it can't be used for a lot of things. So, and I'm going to go back and forth between the readers because my good glasses are still the optometrist. But to talk about the things we could do fire protection, street improvements, water and sewer facilities, neighborhood facilities, community centers, parks and recs, sidewalks, homeless facilities, public utilities, public rehabilitation, planning activities, parking facilities. Please understand that the Seneca County program year 2019 allocation is only for Seneca County and the city of Fostoria. It excludes the city of Tiffin. The city of Tiffin has their own allocation. So when I say parking facilities, let's not everybody get all excited that we do something. That's not us. Fair housing program, general administration, homeless prevention, water facility improvement, code enforcement, exist essential support services, interim emergency rental assistance, off-site improvements, rental housing assistance, centers for the handicap, historic preservation, homelessness prevention implementation, rental housing development, information and counseling, new construction, support services with housing, without housing, tenant landlord mediation, and utility payment assistance. There's a lot we can do. There's a lot of outcomes that come with that. To hear more about what those are and what you can do, we encourage you to come to the CDIS, or Community Development Implementation Strategy meeting on April 3rd. That will be held at this office at, I want to say 2 o'clock. 1 o'clock p.m. And at that meeting, we will explain what the outcomes of all of those projects could be and how to put in a pre-application. Not any general citizen can put in a pre-application, so it has to run through your township, village, the county commissioners, or your municipality, or a 501c3, which is a nonprofit. So you can submit that to our office, then we vet those and run them through with the commissioners and a steering committee. Last year, which we're finishing up, well, it's not even last year, it's 17, we're finishing that one up. We did a multitude of projects because we had 3 years worth of money, so we were able to do quite a bit. This time around, we're only going to have 2 years worth of money, so it's going to be a bit of a cut. So we're looking to see what we can do, what we can't. We do have a timeline, and I'll just go very quickly over the timeline. The timeline is, this is all pre-application stuff right now. The application's due by June. I have to attend trainings. We have to do another public hearing. We have to have 2 CDIS meetings. We have to do public outreach. We have to meet with communities, and we have to do income surveys for some of those communities. So it's not the easiest of processes, and I'm not the nicest person after today. So, and when we get closer to June, I get even shorter. So the smile goes away, and the stress goes, and yoga pants come out. So that's the best way I can put it. Everybody gets used to it, though. They had fun with it last time. You will hear a lot about it. You'll see a lot on our website and on our Facebook page. Our township trustees, villages, the commissioners, and Fostoria will receive tons of communication on this as well, and all of our partners. The reason we do that is because we want to make sure that everybody is thinking ahead of projects. We started last year, I think it was October or November, outreaching to the community, asking for project ideas. We've got a couple that have come in that, you know, some things are viable, some things are not. David Zack can attest to this under Tiffin Seneca Economic Partnership. They do it for Tiffin. And he knows as well that you get all kinds of fun requests. Really fun requests. We'll leave it at that. So we vetted out a few of those, and we have some that are going to be bringing us some free apps. So I just wanted to go over that and let you know. This is not for neighborhood revitalization or any of the discretionary programs, but the CDIS meeting could have a recommendation that we apply for one of those programs, which we can do, but it's under a different allocation. Any questions, concerns, thoughts?
What's the deadline for projects? The hard deadline?
The hard deadline, haven't set that date yet.
Okay.
So if that date, that date will probably be set after the April 3rd meeting. We
Okay.
will, my staff's ill this week.
Yeah.
So what we were hoping to have done this week for next week is, I'm one person, I can only do so much.
Yeah.
Just isn't there. So it may take me a little bit longer to get the pre-application ready.
Yeah.
And then it'll have a deadline for pre-applications.
Okay.
After the CDIS meeting though.
And income surveys, is there any particular community that needs to work on income surveys as we speak? I know Republic got theirs, Clinton got theirs. Those are good for a couple, multiple years.
Republic needs to redo theirs. Clinton Townships is good for 5 years. So we have 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 is when we'll
And
do theirs again.
Fostoria automatic.
Fostoria is not automatic, they have block groups that are automatic. So we have block groups in the county, some of those block groups are automatically low to moderate income. Low to moderate income means that the income is below 50% of the poverty guidelines. So it's 50, well higher than 51%, but it's below poverty guidelines, it's not good. The only community that automatically qualifies is the Village of Bloomville. So if anybody's here from the Village of Bloomville, anybody knows anybody from the Village of Bloomville, go talk to council and say, hey, if you got a project, take it to Charlene because we want some of that money brought to our community. We tried last time, they didn't really have a project that would work, so we're hoping this time maybe they will, but nothing yet.
There's a sign-up sheet going around, that's because this is a public hearing where we are notifying people that this program is underway.
And we just would like to make sure that everybody understands that it is the intent that the commissioners will apply for this. Regional planning, it's not mine, I administer it, regional planning administers it, it is the county's grant. So we want to make that very clear, it is the intent that the county will be applying for this. Thank you very much.
Stacy, do we need to do this executive session now? Or
No.
Can we bump it to the end?
Yeah.
Okay.
You want to close the hearing? Anybody? Any comments for the hearing?
Are there any public comments for the hearing as it relates to CDBG? David?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the hearing at 10:43. All right, county administrator report.
Wanted to give you a report on our fiber project. The fiber is in the ground, complete, and all of the buildings are connected. Callworks, which is the company that is doing the next generation 911 system, is on site. They came in on Monday. They have each site live, and they're looking at a go live next week. So all of the sheriff's office, Tiffin PD, our EOC, Fostoria, they are all communicating through the fiber, and so it's good news. So hopefully next week we'll have our go live date, and I'll give you an update next week.
We talked about maybe doing a ceremonial ribbon cutting on that, so
Yep.
lose track of that.
Right. Yep.
Good work on all parts.
Other than that, I don't have anything.
Do you want to talk about the pre-application for the airport while you have the stage?
Yes.
Is that all right?
Last week, we kind of met with Stantec and Brad Newman to discuss the pre-application, which we had submitted earlier, which included some purchases of property out there. There's still some appraisals and reappraisal stuff that needs done, and we're getting close on our timeline. So I guess FAA's recommendation was to move forward with just the taxiway project and remove the property acquisitions that was included in the pre-application. I don't need another resolution to remove it, but Stantec did send the final, their estimate or their fees. They sent that in today, and I can give the date. The total project is, for the taxiway, is $510,788. FAA would cover 90%, and state would cover 5%, and our local share would be 5%. So of the total project, including the engineering fees, our amount would be $25,540. So they want us to get the pre-application resubmitted, and then, like I said, I do have a contract with Stantec for the professional services that does need signed. I can always wait till next week since it did just come back from a prosecutor, but I wanted to at least bring it in. Their cost again is covered under the same percentage under that $510,000 project.
So, do you need us to take action on that contract
For the Stantecs, yes.
for the engineering?
For the engineering, yep.
And then that would prepare it for bid?
Yep, they would take
Accepted
care of all the engineerings and get it ready for bid, yep. I don't know if Brad has any,
Brad, do you want, anything you want to add to that?
am I saying that correctly, Brad?
No, it's certainly okay. I had approached the board earlier to crack fill and reseal it for this year. I thought we could go a few more years in my maintenance program with the help of Mark and everybody else that stops by on the blacktop, but you're gonna lose some funding, whether it's okay or not. We're gonna lose it, and it could be okay, but to do this project it's expensive.
Do we have any more window of opportunity to wait to see if FAA gets the information they need regarding the appraisals of the properties? Or this is a drop dead kind of a situation, we either do the taxiway or don't do anything?
Or don't do anything.
Only because of time.
Yeah.
And it's just gonna get rolled to next year.
Okay.
Property
It-
So,
acquisition.
let me make sure that I understand the situation. You think that you could crack fill and make weld the taxiway for somewhere below $30,000?
Yeah, we had the ramp and the taxiway coming in at just 26.
But to replace it is someplace north of 500,000. Okay, and that if we did not use the money this year, we wouldn't lose it necessarily, that would roll into the next year's appropriations?
125,000 rolls off, right?
150 I've been suspending, and it was like 2015, and at 2020 it goes away, so
Okay.
I'm gonna lose one of,
And there are no other projects specifically for that 120 or 150 that we could submit?
without an engineering company doing it, it
Okay.
just, there is, but I have to follow some guidelines
I
and.
mean, I get the timing and logistics, but it just seems to me that if we could do something that would take care of things at $25,000 as opposed to spending $500,000 of taxpayers' money, it just gets to me.
It's hurting me, it's gonna take us out 20 years again. But I could do 5 and then go out 20, but I can't change the timing.
Okay.
The local look to us is the same, but it's all tax.
I get it, I mean, I get the fact that, but it is coming out of somebody's pocket
Yeah.
somewhere. Okay.
How much was the engineering?
Just the engineering,
Did it do the project? I mean, you know, what I want done, I'll bet you.
total fees for all services on the project shall not exceed $85,355.
$85,000 an engineer, a $25,000 project. All right.
Well, on our,
I know.
yeah.
I know, I
This-
can't
You
change.
remember, this project was already approved and
I get it.
submitted. If we're gonna change it, I mean, this is what was already approved.
Okay.
The property and the taxiway, we were gonna go for the
I just
whole.
wish there were a way to do
Yeah,
that, but there.
and I do come to the commissioners and approach maintenance to cut, so that we just don't get
Right.
way out of.
Well, I mean, and it's gotta be stated that the FAA, when they come, has said repeatedly that Sunny County Airport is, if not the nicest, one of the absolute nicest runways and maintained facilities in the state of Ohio. So, credit where it's due, and that's to our airport operator. Having said that, I will move that we approve the engineering fees.
Second.
All right, roll call. Any further discussion? Roll call.
Commissioner Stacy? Yes. Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes.
gotta go, sorry.
So they-
All right. Thanks, Brad. So you're good on that? We'll be able to move forward with the engineering and get the date set?
Yep.
Okay. All right, commissioner reports. Anything to report?
No, mine would have been what we took care of with Mark, so the driveway stuff.
Anything additional, Mike?
Well, I mean, I would like to get into a bit of a discussion about the AEZ, but I don't know whether or not you want to go through their agenda first and then add it at the end, or if you would like to.
Yeah, we can.
Whatever your
we can,
pleasure.
Bring it under old business if you
Okay.
like, and that's fine. I don't have anything else. I did want to move on to, I guess it's under old business, is the S-Power request. It's really a new request, but I don't think we need to mind that. I did get a call from Peter Pawlowski, and he asked if we would be interested in, as the owner of the airport, to submit a letter to the Power Sighting Board. We'd have the opportunity to get in before the staff report was done. So, and if we were willing to, say that we would, we intend to follow the FAA's recommendation on this project or their findings. So that's not my decision to make as to whether or not we send that letter or not. So, the only real mechanism is for us to bring it in here and have a conversation about it. As far as I recall, on the Republic Wind project, there was an FAA determination of no obstructions that was on the previous array, and now they're reevaluating it on the new array, but they found no obstructions. And apparently, the Power Sighting Board is waiting for some more data points as far as the FAA and aeronautics are concerned. And so that's why it may be appropriate for us to have this conversation here. So I told Peter that, I didn't know what the flavor of the board would be. I would bring it up, see if we wanted to have the conversation, if we wanted to get something out in advance. So that's kind of the background of what I understand the request to be, and then I forwarded to you the aeronautic reports that were contracted from with S-Power, with private entities. So, from my perspective, I think I would like to see the FAA report before we put anything else on the table. I don't know what that's going to be, if there's going to be obstructions or if there's not going to be obstructions. And, I think it would be a little premature for us to put something in prior to the staff report. So that's where I'm at, but I committed to bring it to discussion.
And just opening those reports and having discussions with Brad on the phone, like, I said, what I would interpret this line to be X, and he goes, but what if it's that? And I said, exactly why. There's just way too many, I don't know how we can make a decision on doing any kind of a letter at this point until we can get some more interpretation of what that means.
Yeah.
The FAA is our regulatory agency for our airport, managed by Brad, and so we want to be in compliance, but as Brad took it one way and saying, well, okay, then they could force us to do this, I took it as, well, they're gonna protect our airport, but there are two ways to look at that. We've got a lot of things to be better defined.
Yeah, I did have the opportunity to talk to Representative Reineke this morning about the FAA, and, he cautioned us because they're pretty much their gospel on what they say, and it could seriously affect commerce in Seneca County if they had any of those concerns regarding the flight patterns. And now they're into, drone control and that kind of thing. And evidently the Ohio Aviation Association is also kind of chiming in on this. So there is some Johnny-come-lately looks from these folks that I think it's a matter of concern as opposed to a matter of them issuing or leading towards issuing approval from an FAA standpoint. I'm just a bit curious about the fact that, you know, we have told these folks that in the hundreds and maybe in the thousands that we have absolutely no influence on the decision regarding the windmills, regarding the turbines. And yet, we get a request from S-Power asking us to try to be of some influence. And we actually try to intervene with the OPSB to recommend that the projects get done. So I don't know how we can have it both ways. You know, if we're gonna intervene on behalf of the people at their request, I think that makes sense. And/or if we're gonna intervene on behalf of the projects, that might make sense. But to say that we don't have any influence and that we repeatedly tell folks to contact their state reps, contact the PUCO, contact OPSB, and yet, every time we get a request, or anytime we get a request from the power, or from the power companies, we actually want to do something to assist them? And why would we say we could have influence on one side and not have influence anti?
Yeah, I don't know that I disagree with you. I think that the appropriate place for us to have that conversation is in the intervention process, as Commissioner Stacy has pointed out before. We're on the same team with the airport, so, there may be a situation where we're, asking for some kind of stipulation at the intervention process, and I think that's, probably why, there's a good argument for us to be involved in the intervention process, as the owner of the airport.
Well, I just want to make sure that, we would hire somebody to manage the airport as well on that. If there is a difference of opinion as to what this board as a whole considers appropriate action, and the airport manager's consideration of what's appropriate action, that doesn't affect anything else to do with the airport when it comes to funding or operation.
Yeah, we're all on the same team.
Could I,
Sure.
Yeah. I don't think we
Yeah, Brad,
want to be There's airport.
I think everybody received this report, the 20-page report. I think you forwarded it to me.
Okay.
Out of those 20 pages, unless you were technical savvy in aviation, it would be extremely difficult to digest. So some highlighted points. I just wanted to bring up some highlighted points in the executive summary. The project impacts an approach at the Seneca County Airport, period. It impacts it, regardless of how we rearrange things and so forth. The limits, which would be an altitude limit, are unlikely to be able to be mitigated. So they're gonna change something we're doing to do this, which is gonna affect our landing ability. Now, if you look at the runways around the 24 airports, this was a huge study. This took time to do this. Out of the 24 airports, I'll agree that 8 of us are active. Some of them are private strips and so forth. Just need to be considered, options, this and that. But out of the 8 of us, we have runways that go northeast and southwest. Okay, so in the majority, 67% of our activity is landing to the southwest. So over town and out to, we line up 11, 12 mile out to the northeast and east and come in on the approach, on final approach when the weather's bad. And we let down and so forth, and we're able to find a runway and land. So if they're not able to mitigate what they want to do with the turbines, they're going to say, Brad, instead of coming down to 1,250 feet, we got to add the height. You're only going to, and you're not going to be able to land us here as often in the bad weather. And I'm not the only one affects. We're talking life flight. So if they can't land, I'm just saying, and when they said it would be unlikely to be able to be mitigated, period. So they're telling you, walk gently, because I don't think we're going to be able to, if that's what you want to do, the facts are going to have to change in the airway system for us. If it was on the other end of the runway, landing to the northeast, everybody knows we get northeast winds, it's cold, lousy weather, southeast winds, we get rain, low ceilings and so forth, probably would affect us less, but this is, in my mind, this is pretty serious. The other thing, the analyst did not consider radio communication and navigation. So it wasn't considered yet. We're not that far in the study. It wasn't considered yet. Now, I'm talking, you have ground vehicles with radios for, I'm just asking, how are we commuting in some of the equipment that the county has and so forth?
Talking to the sheriff's department,
Sheriff's Department,
all emergency services.
all the emergency services? It said it hadn't been studied yet, but it said it did not consider electromagnetic interference on communications and navigation systems.
I'm assuming that.
Navigation systems affects us, radio, it affects more than the airport. I just wanted to point that out. We had one other, and you can see all the airports that they studied Mansfield, and there were 24 regional public and private use facilities that were, they looked at their airspace, their traffic patterns, their landing, and so forth. En route, going up at altitude, no effect. But letting down into these airports when the weather's bad has some effect. The next thing that I think, the Mansfield has radar that can see us down to a certain altitude when we're on the approach into Tiffin. And they feel that it's gonna block their radar, their line of sight looking at us on the radar. And I really think in an emergency situation that could affect, and in normal situations, it could affect. So I think we need to pay a little bit of attention there. The project will impact 3 military routes. Can they be changed? Sure, they can be changed. But is that what we want to do? Most of them are low-level military routes. We need them for night training. We need them for day training. And I really think what'll happen is we'll shift. They'll have to shift and do something different. I think it's important that we keep Mansfield and Toledo happy. They said the Department of Defense Siting and Clearinghouse for Review and Military may object to the project impact on their training missions.
That's those ones we see flying by at 500 feet.
C-130s.
That's right.
On a regular basis.
You know, and don't let that bother you. That's important
Yeah.
for all of us, really, it is. And,
Well, I
they're
can see-
hometown people training that are ready to leave at the drop of a hat. So as I'm saying, we are gonna impact that a little bit. Obstacle clearances, you know, we affect people clear over to the Fostoria Airport shooting their approach. Just think it ought to, they're gonna raise their minimums, which I told you on the one approach landing to the southwest that 67% of the time that's being used. One important thing on page 18, if the FAA determines that one impact, which would be one, and we had a number of them out there to the northeast here, or the cumulative impact constitutes a substantial adverse effect, the conclusion could be used for the basis of determination of a hazard. In the event for the project to proceed, mitigation options will have to be identified, approved, and implemented, which always means change. Be
It could
advised.
mean change to their project, though. It could be knocking out winter. I mean, you know, it could go either way.
I don't disagree. Be advised that all mitigations options are subject to FAA approval, which is not guaranteed. And the other thing, we sit here and we talk about FAA grant programs. You have committed to I can't tell you how many of them that have been very successful to the community. To make the airport grow 90-10, most of the time 95-5, and we're doing it again here today. And if we start saying we want some changes. We're gonna have to mitigate these things. They're gonna say, hey, Seneca County put themselves in that predicament.
Good input, that's why we needed to discuss it today. Yeah, because like I
Yeah,
said,
and
this
I
just
will
happened.
reiterate that, Bill's concern was that the FAA pretty much is the gospel. And if you get, if you get them in a situation where you disagree with their findings, the likelihood of future grants is
Well-
pretty much dissipated.
I think I'm just painting the picture,
Right.
and you've used them very successfully. And you've improved not only my airport, or the county's airport, and all these people's airport here, but you've improved it with 5 cents on the dollar.
Yeah.
And let's let the FAA keep going with us. I mean, if that's what you want, that's good. And you've approved it with all the taxpayers' money on small projects. Just like the ramp, $11,000. I mean, and you can see what I think I can take care of the taxiway for 3 years, for 15. We've got to grind and mill and have $80,000. It'll be better. There's no doubt it'll be better. And we're gonna extend it out another 20 years, but I don't wanna lose everything in that big ball that you have rolling with the FAA.
Yeah, and I think there'll be an opportunity when the FAA report comes out for us to have a conversation to see if we want to address that further. Because I'm not sensing that we want to do anything before we see that. So I think we'll have that conversation when we see what the FAA recommends. And, our next opportunity will be, to add stipulations at the adjudicated hearing.
But if you need to read that report with all the acronyms and the terms that they use, I'd be glad to go through it, but it needs, it's paragraph by paragraph, and there's a couple bullet points. They may be mitigated, no guarantees, they may do this, and I'm just saying, if the FAA said your local authorities approved all this, and now you're asking for lower landing minimums or a better approach to your runway, which they're coming out with, and I can't do it anymore because you didn't have any foresight to think ahead.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the request of us was to accept the ruling of the FAA, not to accept this report. So
Right. Yeah.
Those are
Two different things.
very different
Yeah,
things.
okay. But I don't think most people can understand
I would agree.
that report. You go through it and you think, well, what's DOD? What's DOH? What's,
There's a
Yeah.
page and a half of
you got a page and a half.
Definitions.
And I'm pretty
also-
sure the Department of Defense doesn't care what we think.
Okay.
But
Any comments? You're always welcome to come out and we can review it page by page, or anybody in the community.
I have a question for you.
Sure.
Do you know approximately how many farmers you have fly out of the airport for their crops, put on cover crops or whatnot?
Crop dusting.
It depends exactly on what type of year, but you'll be seeing it here. If we start in the fall,
Yeah, if I can.
we're seeding wheat and rye. Not me personally, but people come in and use the airport for some of the elevator services. And I'm co-ops, I'm just thinking of all the people, the airport's open to everybody, and that's the way we like it. So what do? They buy fuel, sales tax comes back to the county, I mean, everything kind of rolls into place here. But, we come in the spring, fertilizer.
Well, cover crops is getting big, correct?
About your seating
Oh, yeah.
position yesterday.
Yeah.
He was right.
You
And
run
then-
on the lake and stuff early.
And then depending on what kind of worms and bugs and so forth, which we can't control, that depends from July on, what goes on till we get the first frost.
So there's a lot of farmer flying going on.
Yeah. Agricultural
Put it
flying
mildly.
for the elevators, the co-ops and so forth, and they actually, they need, they can't get in the fields or they don't have the equipment, one or the other. Sometimes it's economically feasible to fly it on a lot better.
Thank you.
Okay, so thanks, Brad. I appreciate you being here.
Yep.
This is a conversation that will be continued, obviously, when we get the reports from the public project and the S-Power project. So, all right, moving on to new old business. Mr. Kirschner asked that the alternative energy zone be put on the agenda for today?
Well, I'm going to get to a motion about this, but this is a fun fact. Thank you very much. I think in Adden, we gotta have some fun with stuff too, right? But it happened that the president was in Lima yesterday, right? And I want to make sure I don't misquote him. So I'm reading from thehill.com, which report President Trump on Wednesday mocked the idea of fostering wind power, suggesting that it would devalue property and undermine U.S. output of other energy forms. He was at the Lima tank plant making these comments. Trump touted an event in the U.S., in Ohio, that the U.S. was the largest producer of crude oil and natural gas in the world. He suggested that would not have been the case had Hillary Clinton been elected. Hillary wanted to put windmills all over the place, he said, workers at a tank factory in Lima. Then Trump mimicked the man telling the spouse to turn off the television when the wind doesn't blow in order to save electricity. So I just wanted to make sure that I quoted that correctly, but it kind of added to, as I'm thinking about what I was going to do today and read that, it added a little bit of fuel to the, but in seriousness, we have not put on the floor the AEC decision, and I think that it's time to do that again, and I'm going to so move, and I'm going to so move based on the fact that our friends and neighbors in Erie County have voted since the last time it was asked to not approve the pilot program. Huron County this very day voted not to approve the pilot program. Apex has stated that on multiple occasions that even if they didn't have the pilot, they would build the Emerson Creek project. Logan County commissioners did not grant the pilot when wind turbine companies came to them. There was a significant article, I think, in the paper from our neighbor, State Rep Dick Stein, the other evening in the paper, talking about what he feels is the negatives to the landscape. We have court decisions of recent date not supporting restraining orders from S-Power to be able to come onto folks' property. In fact, if you read that decision very closely, you will see that the visiting judge in the case even suggested that he believes that the contracts may not be constitutional under Ohio law. That's his words, not mine. It's funny how things tie in together. We just talked about the FAA, but one of the concerns I had from the gentleman yesterday, and I talked to Commissioner Stacy about it because I wasn't sure about farming, was cover crops. And many folks with cover crops, the only way they can get those seed in the fall is to actually seed them through the air. And if those cover crops were not in, there would be some serious problems regarding erosion and runoff into our water system. So that was another issue that I think that we haven't really looked at very closely. Finally, at our own commission, we asked the Economic Partnership to put together an analysis about what kind of tax money we're going to lose, and conservatively, the number came back at $13 million. So based on those facts, and based on the fact that I believe this Board of Commissioners ought to have some control in negotiating the amount of taxes these projects would pay if they gained income, and based on the fact that unless we rescind the AEZ, we won't have that opportunity, I would move that we rescind the AEZ.
So I'll second the motion to get it on to discussion.
Okay.
And I would like to give Commissioner Stacy a chance. I think Mike's already discussed.
Yeah.
He led with discussion.
I
So if Commissioner Stacy has anything that she would like to add at this moment, and then if it's okay with Commissioner Stacy, I would like.
I guess I'll wait till he returns. The meeting is running a little long.
Anybody else needs to be solved?
But I do, but.
All right.
Okay. Yes. I don't want to go back through all the documents, but this was the stack of the documents that I cited and went through back whatever date that was last year of why legislation in this county that exists, and it has existed for some time, I believe needs to stay in place. A lot of protections for the county. Something that as the people talk about the numbers and talk about what we leave on the table, what we might lose, et cetera. There's a lot of unknowns to that. Living by seeing some true examples in that would be helpful, and I don't know that we have that yet with a project that's paying the taxes under that structure, could have. And it's not the same, we're comparing apples and peaches, but I know in fact with other public utility projects such as gas lines, and I believe if we didn't have the pilot, there would be the opportunity for the companies to begin immediately negotiating with having their attorneys do so to bring what they're paying in taxes down. And I do know in fact, in Sandusky County, one of the pipelines, and there's many, in fact did that. And again, I know I'm talking apples and orange peaches, but they indeed came out, and I can't tell you which company it was, I heard this from another elected official in that county, asked for 100% reduction of their tax that they were going to be paying. It's settled, they'd only have to pay 30% of what was predicted. So just to know that that would still be out there. But again, these things, the road use maintenance, the emergency training, the educational things, and the other things that the AEZ brings is why I stand really firm on that. And the whole property rights thing. But I do have to ask a question. On November 13th of 2018, Commissioner Thomas presented a resolution that it basically in itself had, in my opinion, had a closing couple of sentences that really mattered in the whole thing. And that was offering up a bit of a compromise about putting a sunset on the AEZ in Seneca County. We immediately tabled that because we needed time to digest it. He needed to get it out there so that it can happen, because this is a public process. We removed it from the table on November 20th, 2018, with no interest from any member of this board discussing that option or that compromise that was put out there. And I guess I have to wonder why, when Mr. Thomas was willing to have that discussion then, there was no interest in that. And now we move forward and we're several months later and there's still interest, so.
I
that's the end of my
assume that's
discussion.
directed at me, so I'll answer.
Yeah,
The fact is that we had a number of projects pending. Some of those may have had to have been resubmitted at that point. You can't just come up with a picture of time and talk about it without talking about circumstances. At that point in time, some of the projects, or I think both of the projects may have been submitted, I don't remember exactly. And because the AEZ was approved, then we also had to approve the pilot. But there may have been a situation in which some of those folks had to resubmit their applications, at which point September would have been too far out to not be able to negotiate the pilot with them. I don't remember the date exactly, but it was September of 19, I think, is when we talked about, or 20, we talked about when it would sunset. I don't recall. If that is the compromise solution at this point, I am more than willing to discuss that because circumstances have changed. I believe that, if we will continue to have these discussions about the AEZ rescission, if we don't at least set a date certain. So if that motion is still something that's viable, I'm willing to talk about that. At least it brings it to a conclusion and sunsets it.
Yeah, I think context is important,
Mm-hmm.
and I think a measured response is important. So I think that we have an opportunity to maybe revisit that motion, and maybe Jimmy can pull that out and create something that we can look at next week, and then table it. And just, since in the interest of having folks here, if it's okay with the both of you, I would like to ask if there's any, before we take action on your motion, ask if there's any comments from the folks that are here, because obviously not everybody's here to hear about Wolf Creek or CDBG. So,
I mean, the last thing I would say is I'm not certain sunsetting it in September of this year or rescinding it now. I'm not sure exactly what the difference and what the objection would be to that.
Yeah, I guess my position on that would be what's fair to property owners that are signed up in leases and giving them advance notice that we're changing policy. I think that's eminently fair. So giving them some kind of advance notice, that's my own thing. Chris Siemens, you
Yes.
remember the date?
What's that?
The sunset date.
It was like next fall, I believe,
It's
wasn't it?
September 19, 2019.
Yes.
There you go.
Well, this fall.
You asked the question during the meeting, so
Yeah.
I was hoping you. So if it's okay with you, if there's anybody who'd like to make a public comment at this point, we'll kind of finish up this discussion to be inclusive and have some comment. I think we know where most of you stand, and we'll talk to almost all of you, but always better to have another opportunity. Dana? Dawn?
I do have a.
Dawn Hep, Scipio?
Adams.
Adams, sorry.
I do have a comment with Huron County saying no to the pilot and also Erie saying, do you really have that much more knowledge in them that they don't care about their residents, that they're just, what would be the reason that they would say no and you would say yes? I don't understand. I mean, they have more information now than you did when you made the decision, but for sure.
Yeah,
I mean,
that was
the
in
more days that go
2000.
past, the more education that's done. So I wonder why there's such a difference of opinion from you to the other
And
counties.
what,
Can I just,
please, sure.
I mean, I think, Don, I think it's human nature, and by that I mean, each of us can look at a set of circumstances and come to a different conclusion, okay? I mean, we gotta allow ourselves the ability to be able to do that. Because given a set of facts, I may end up saying this is the way it is, and somebody else may say something else, and you gotta respect, you know, that final decision if everybody is doing what they believe is the best thing. So I think the answer to your question is that I look at these set of facts and come to a different conclusion than my fellow commissioners. Huron County looked at the set of facts and came to a different conclusion than this board did. I think personally they came to the right conclusion, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're you know, bad people or adverse. It just means that they came to a different conclusion.
I think it's because of more information. I think from the beginning of these projects until now, I think most people have informed themselves more. So
I would
how
agree.
I felt at the beginning of this is certainly different than how I feel now.
And just to extend on Commissioner Kirchner's remarks, something else is at play here in that it's a dynamic market. So the power market is continuing to evolve, so the prices that they can achieve are changing. And in 2011, when the pilot was established, there was a certain cost to build wind projects. It was much higher, and that cost has come down dramatically to the point where you know, the pilot payment differential, if there is one, and we don't have all the variables for the formula, so we can't solve it precisely, but the pilot payment isn't as critical for the projects. So it's a dynamic market if you think of the cost to build the projects. You know, some figures I've seen are down 60% from 2011 as far as the cost to build these projects. If you look at the Republic Wind Project, I don't know the numbers exactly, Chris, you may be able to recall this off the top of your head, but I think it was like 78 turbines proposed originally, and now they're down to 48. That's 30 less foundations, you know, miles less of cabling. You know, it has to drive down the cost. So if you look at the cost to build the project, the capital cost, and the taxes that would be on that on a regular run rate, the capital cost has come down dramatically. So the pilot has changed. And I've talked to some folks in Columbus, and it's not good news down there. I mean, they're talking about this law, you know, sunsets in the future, 2021, I think it is. But there's discussions down there of a pilot of $5,000 per megawatt. So the pilot is, the pressure is down on the pilot. So we may be the last county that gets the full pilot. We just don't know. It's a dynamic market, and the costs are evolving. And what was true 2 years ago, projects that were in design 2 years ago, isn't going to be true in 2 years from now. We weren't talking about, in 2011, they weren't talking about 4.4 megawatt turbines. They've gotten bigger. And
But
so-
what you suggest, what you get, maybe in my mind, what you settle for.
Right.
Yeah, I
You know, I just want everybody to understand too, again, going back to my original comment, everything seems to be leaning towards the fact that the projects are becoming less, et cetera, and the number that I talked about from TCEP was $13 million, and there's a lot of variables. I'll give you all that, but the fact is, at least from my calculations, the variables are to the argument that we have, that 13 million is really more like 30 million that we're leaving on the table, okay? And that even though the cost of the projects are going down, the fact is that we're getting, if that's true and they're more efficient, then from a percentage standpoint, we're getting compensated less from percentage. If we don't know what's gonna happen to the cost of what they're gonna receive on a megawatt in the future. We know what they're getting now, but those prices may very well increase too. So all the discussions that we're having, that maybe the numbers are too conservative, maybe they're too liberal. So it's not like you can only have one side of the conversation, going back to what I said. You see the same set of facts, and things could be variable one way or the other. As far as, as far as protecting the county, I think we're doing, again, from my viewpoint, we're doing just the opposite of that by not putting ourselves in a position to negotiate. We're accepting a set of rules that are pre-established that aren't necessarily to the benefit of the people that we represent.
Okay. Yeah, do you have a question back there?
Yeah, Gail Moyer, Tiffany address, Boone Township. What about the retooling that has been happening in wind farms all over the United States? When they retool, they put in different,
Repowering.
different turbine
Yeah.
things. And so then they come back and ask to renegotiate with you, even though they're under pilot.
Well,
Yeah.
would you like me to?
Have at it.
Okay.
Mike and I didn't coordinate shirts today.
Well, I mean, under the normal circumstances, the auditor appraises the value of the real estate, right? The question is, if that pilot, we talked about them coming back and applying to the county for zero taxes or a lesser percentage of taxes, and again, that's just another reason to say that the county ought to have the ability to negotiate those things.
That's right.
If they decide to take less than the pilot, I guess that's the county's decision. But if they do retool after 10 or 15 years, obviously the value of those turbines, the new turbines, or the new software, or whatever, increases significantly, and then you go through the whole tax calculation again, and it could very well be up to or more than what it was originally. So, that's what I'm talking about with the variables. People see the same set of facts. If you look at a straight line depreciation as to the value of those turbines, certainly it's gonna go to zero. But everybody in the world knows that after 10 or 12 years, they're gonna retool, and the value's gonna increase again. So all those numbers that we talk about as variables go away, and they make no sense, because we have not added that probable condition in that equation.
Yeah, and we can't control law changes that are gonna happen in the future. We know they're going to change. We can't foresee all of those. The value of the pilot is a very simple formula with very simple variables. It's megawatts and a dollar amount. So, that's.
Just very quickly stated, I can show you a formula which shows that the pilot absolutely would be the same as a regular tax over 30 years, depreciated out evenly over that period of time. I can put that equation together. I could also put an equation together that shows you that we left $30 million on the table if they retool. It depends on how you look at it.
Yeah, and it will depend on what the tax laws are at that point.
But
and
again, the
what's
reason I
allowed.
asked that question is because
Yeah.
it's a known fact that that is usually what happens with the wind farms.
That they repower.
retool.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
the
I
most
don't-
probable scenario, yes.
Yes, so it's not like it's maybe it might happen. It's probably it's going to happen.
And we, quite frankly, we face that all the time in our property tax collection. So, we changes in laws, the AUV, a lot of variables change with the market, and big companies hire law firms that go down to Columbus and appeal their taxes, and we have to hire a special counsel to go down and defend ourselves, and it happens at every evaluation. So that's not new to us, but I understand your concern. Yes, Chris.
Well, if I can
Chris
speak up
Veman
for a minute.
Adams?
Yes, got it. I know we've been beating a dead horse with this thing since hell I walked in day one. But the one thing about that program, it's antiquated, and like you pointed out, it brings up a lot of, stuff back from when it was first put in. The technology was the time new, now it's out of date. I guess in my opinion, and to a lot of us, is that the program seems to be a welcome mat, if you want to say. There's a lot of proposals that have been put out that you can find on the internet. I know Apex has put out several proposals. From a business standpoint, and this is just me thinking, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I owned a business, the best way to be financially soluble is to budget. So they can budget knowing that they have to pay $9,000 a megawatt on these projects. Taxes is going to be very difficult to do that. Also to sell it, to trade it to somebody else. We don't know how long any of these businesses are going to stay here. They may build, they may get their gift, they may leave. The production tax credit, like you said, is it's also phasing out because the industry has matured, and the intent was to get it on its feet so it could compete against other forms of energy. Now we're in this big discussion in the state with nuclear energy and everything else. So I think we need to look for viable forms of energy that's going to be able to provide electricity to us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but also create a clean climate. So that's one of my things with this AEZ program. It needs to be revisited. I think the state needs to look at it, and you guys as county commissioners have the right to look at it, like Ms. Stacy with the roads and everything. We have to protect all of that, but in doing so, we also need to look at what's going to be the best benefit for our economy. And like this gentleman with the airport's talking about, we're actually sort of shooting ourselves in the foot. We're welcoming these wind companies here, but now we're making it difficult and hazard maybe to aviation and radio communication and stuff like that. I don't know if you recall a few years ago, it might have been even last year, but Channel 11 picked up a false weather blip on the radar. I saw it right on the news, and they said it was no weather at all. It was EMF from the wind projects out in Paulding County area, and it was the weirdest thing. It was clear skies, but what could that do to aviation, So, anyway, that's my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, it was probably at 2.5 cents. But,
Right.
And Vicki, if you're watching this, Vicki had to leave.
Yeah.
Note that for the first 2.5 minutes, I agreed with everything Chris said. So, all right. Any other comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, John Wilson from Thompson Township. I was at the Huron County meeting, and one thing.
Which one?
The Huron County.
Today?
In Norwalk.
Today?
Oh no. That was the first one they had.
The public meeting. Yeah,
the
okay,
public
yeah,
meeting.
got it.
And at last week or so.
Sure.
And one thing that puzzled me was Apex came up and gave their presentation, and they had their graphs with the tax and the pilot program, which was which it showed that on their graph it showed that they're paying more by the pilot program than taxes, and if they and they'll do, if they don't approve the pilot program, they will go for it anyway. And I've certainly seen Mr. Kirshner's graph that he had last year, and which was the total opposite. So, my question is, if they're going to pay more for the pilot program, why wouldn't they just go for the taxes? And that's so. I mean, why? And and the other aspect is they're saying they wouldn't. There wouldn't be a RUMA program. They wouldn't have to do that. Well, from being at these meetings, they want to do that because every time they move as far as I know with the engineering, every time they move a heavy equipment down the road, they got to apply for a permit.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a lot of traffic going back and forth, and they don't want to go and wait for a permit to be approved every time. So you're going to get the RUMA program anyway. And so they said they wouldn't have to do that. They wouldn't, So just my main question is, why the pilot program is that they want it if it's going to cost them more. I mean, if I had stock in their company, why you want to pay more for a pilot program when you can get cheaper on a tax program? you know, so, I mean, that's, you know, it just, you know, puzzled me, you know, why they would want a pilot program, you know, if they could pay less.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
No other comments? Yes, sir.
My name is Chuck Gaito, I'm from Eden Township. And I know this doesn't have to do with the pilot program, but we're talking about a lot of things that could happen in the future, and I want to talk about something that happened as of last Tuesday. They must be doing some more core drilling in my area, and I know it's not as big as everybody's talking about, but it's big to me. I live on the Township Road 165. Equipment, large equipment, pickup trucks, go down a mud road, go across the farmer's field, do their drilling, do their whatever work they do, come back the same way. Okay, they load and unload the equipment on our road, okay? When they leave, what do you think the road looks like in two different directions, where I live, and what we have to drive through in the rain now, and the mud on the road? So, I made a couple phone calls to see, hey, what do we do about the mud? And our township finally came out and cleaned the mud up on the road. Now, I don't think that's our township's job to follow these guys around and clean up after them. If it's already starting and they're not taking care of it now, does anybody want me to believe that they're gonna take care of it as it gets further along in this construction and it gets bigger and the roads get worse, that it's gonna be taken care of? I tried to call down at the, I know they have a place here in town for S-Wind, or S-Power. So I called down there and I didn't get any answer, and I left my name and my phone number. And I kind of wanted some direction as far as, it's not gonna be just the core people that come in. There's gonna be surveyors that come in, and there's going to be other people that come into this project, and each person leaves their footprint where I gotta drive through every day. And, I mean, who do we contact? I mean, how do we
we'll
handle
get
this?
those numbers for you, because that's important. Keeping the roads growing is important.
I mean,
we faced it with the pipeline, right?
And,
I mean,
and if anyone was living there where they put the pipeline in, I think you all say this, there was a guy out there continuously, every half hour and I mean, he was pushing dirt and dust and everything else off the road.
Yeah.
And these guys here coming in, they were hired.
Yeah, I made a few calls in the pipeline as well, yeah.
So, I mean,
agree. It's not acceptable.
That's what I,
It only takes one bad actor, I mean, they're using subs, they're using all kinds of
Yeah.
people, but it's gotta be caught early and corrected.
All right, anything else, Commissioner Stacy, that you want to add after that?
No.
One positive thing we have with us, the person who received I believe it's a Lifetime Achievement Award for the Park District today. At their annual meeting, Dr. Roy Zinn, congratulations. That's more important than a lot of stuff, thank you. Thank you for your help.
All right.
You would motion a second on the floor, did you want that?
I would like to
sold, or do you
move
want
that to table, and that we would have some drafting time, and see if there's something that we can bring back on the table and go.
I will agree with that if we'll talk about it next week. If we agree to do that.
Roll call on the table, just to make sure we get this on the record.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Cox?
Yes. All right, let's table. Other new business?
New business, I have a few sub-tabs. I have a request from our sewer district, it's listed a little bit different on the website. So they're initially asking for $210.79 for their other expense, funds needed for real estate settlement fees. An additional appropriations for the same reasons. They got 5 different ones because they're 5 different districts. Total for that one is $1,251 for a total of $1,461.79. And also a request from the sewer district for the New Real area in the capital improvements line, $4,040. And that is for a new flow transmitter, I'm not even trying to pronounce that. An installation, calibration, and startup services. I have a resolution authorizing the sale of county-owned property, 2002 Dodge Dakota, on behalf of the Seneca Conservation District. Looks like they got $1,201 for the vehicle. A resolution appointing Seneca Conservation District as the apiary inspector for Seneca County.
Apiary?
Apiary, bees. Bees.
Okay, that's,
And I have a resolution authorizing the 4D service contracts between the Seneca County Common Police Court 1, Common Police Court 2, Juvenile Clerk, Juvenile Magistrate, Clerk of Courts, Seneca County, on behalf of the Seneca County Job and Family Services. And I think that's all the resolutions I have.
So move to approve as stated.
Second.
Any discussion? I do want to shout out to Beth for getting this apiary inspector going. That's, she stepped up, because it says that the county may appoint one, and there's no funding, but there's a lot of data out there that says there's colony collapse, and an inspector can help, forestall that, and it's important
We
to our
we have
agriculture.
had some concerns in here on previous occasions.
Yeah, so, roll call.
Commissioner Stacy?
Yes.
Commissioner Kirschner?
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings?
Yes. All right. Anything else from the board?
Move that we go into executive session for the purpose of personnel.
Okay, we don't expect any announcements.
Second.
Second, for the benefit of everyone else, is there any other public comments that weren't aired for the commission? Yes, Mr. Heiser. You guys mind?
No, it's fine.
No.
Hello, good morning, Nate.
Name?
Nate Heiser, Fostoria, Ohio.
Not for us, for the record. Okay.
Okay, I want to talk a little bit about kind of what I spoke about last meeting, which was the solid waste plan, host agreement, that sort of thing. Did you guys get the letters from, the response back from Yost and Devine and Stevenson from when you sent out at the last solid waste meeting? Remember we were there? I don't believe you two were there.
Was,
No,
I'm
I
missing
don't
some
think, you're
information.
talking about the EPA Director Stevenson?
Yeah.
No, I don't think we saw that.
no, that wasn't Kay Ryder's return letters, was it?
No, that was, well, I don't
Kay,
think.
Kay had written all of them and gotten
Yeah,
responses.
It was.
Yeah.
We saw her
So,
letters.
Yeah, I didn't see all
Responses.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, and they got the responses back, and, I guess first off, there wasn't a lot of, there was more concern for the price that they, or the money that they were not getting, more concern for the classification, the material, MSW, C&D material. There was little concern for the overall health aspect.
Well, listen, in support of Kay, really, she was writing on behalf of OSS and not on behalf of the citizens, okay? Because the concerns that OSS has are about tonnage, are about content, et cetera. So in her defense, and I don't need to defend her, she can defend herself, but in her defense, she was writing, the basis for what she was writing was that board and not necessarily the county.
Correct, but the 9 commissioners sit on that board.
That's true, but.
And so I would think that coming from the commissioners here, there would be a little more representation of what the community
I don't
feels.
disagree, but she's president of that board, I think she's president, right?
So that's my case, if we could start to maybe make a little impact in that direction, have a little cause for concern for the residents instead of, the C&D money that's owed to them and the past due amount and all that from Sunny Farms. So I think we need to, take an extra.
I just want you to be able to divide it out, because this board, I'm certain, has a concern about the citizens and the odor and the violations that have been there. The board of OSS, and what I'm trying to do is break that down, has a whole nother set of concerns that aren't necessarily involved with the folks. They're trying to survive on their own at that particular business. So just because Kay
she doesn't speak for the Board of Commissioners, she speaks for the OSS.
Right, but again, the
I get
nine
it.
commissioners
I get it.
sit on that board and represent each of their counties, you know, and these nice folks from the wind farm, you know, you say that you want to represent them, you want to, you know, have ability to negotiate this this pilot program, you know, and talk about property rights and taxes. Well, we want the same consideration for the problems coming from Sunny Farms, and we want property values are being affected, as that information that I brought in last time. Our rights are being taken away by the odor coming onto the property, chasing us off our properties, controlling, you know, wind direction controls what we do during the day. You know, in a perfect case yesterday, the whole town smells probably 100 odor calls coming from Sunny Farms. And maybe, you know, they're doing some work out there that may have helped impact that, but that's not our fault. You know, I would like to see a little more consideration there coming from this commission to the OSS, which brings me to my next point. Can we get out of the joint agreement with OSS? I mean, you talk
Funny you ask. Yes, potentially.
Okay, and you talked last time when I stood up and said, well, they can't function without the money from Sunny Farms, you know, if they were to shut down, which isn't what I want. But I mean, I want the out-of-state waste to stop. But they wouldn't be able to function, and I said they'd have to put, you know, a $5 tax on, you know, people's property in the county to help offset that cost, and, you know, laughed at me about it, which, you know, I think is a viable solution if that's what it were to take. And I'm not saying I want to, you know, dissolve the whole OSS program, but I would pay $5. I'd pay $20 a year to not have to deal with the issues coming, you know, and potential hazards coming from Sunny Farms.
If we could make that trade-off for you, we would put that to a vote and make that trade-off for you. But, you know, this board's probably never gonna raise fees, but that's, you know, if we could make that trade-off, we put that for a vote.
I
understand, your point's valid.
Now, the last point that I wanted to talk about was the agreements. The solid waste plan and the host agreement. I would like to see a better effort coming from this commission to the policy committee for overall concern of our area and people surrounding. You know, I understand that, you know, it's bordering Hancock County. It's as far away from, you know, this office as humanly possible in the county. So not necessarily have to deal with it.
I think Cartwright might be further.
Yeah. But I want to see those issues brought to the table when those negotiations come up. You know, we're talking about reducing tonnage, maybe eliminating some classifications that are causing all these problems. You know, that's the time to do it. And I know it takes a long time to get that done, but we got to start somewhere. You know, and I've said it before, you know, at the last meeting, nothing worthwhile ever comes easy. And I'm not saying it's going to be an easy task, you know, but this ultimately, you represent us. And I want that representation over there because I don't think it's there. I mean, Hollywood's the only one out of, you know, you guys that was at the last OSS meeting. There's another one coming up. And I'm hoping that, you know, we can all be there to help voice the concern from the people that live so close to that monstrosity.
Thank you for that.
Well, I want to try to break it down for you, Nate, because I think that any action we take on this board will have a whole lot more effect regarding the violations, et cetera, of Sunny Farms than anything we take on OSS, because that's a whole different purpose, OSS. You know, they're there to basically try to promote Sunny Farms because they want to be able to generate the income that they need to take. We have all individually met with representatives from Sunny Farms. We all met individually with folks that have concerns, and you know, we want to make sure that we have all the facts in front of us and to be able to make positive decisions on your behalf. We believe that some progress is being made toward the order. We hope so. And we'll continue to monitor that. We'll continue to listen to anybody that calls us. But I think you need to appeal to this board and not necessarily the OSS board regarding your concerns as it relates to the landfill.
Well, what can this board do? Because I wasn't under the impression that.
Yeah, you can't, I mean, other than try to influence the health department, other than try to contact EPA, other than have communications with the operator, tell them that we're very concerned about this stuff, we want them to clean up their act, we want them to comply with any work orders that they have regarding getting back in compliance, and to stay on them and let them know that we're not, we're gonna be the squeaky wheel. And every time somebody calls us, we're calling them. Hopefully they get tired of it soon enough to get this thing fixed.
Well, and that's good, but those agreements set the foundation for how this whole thing runs, and we have insight onto that. Whoever sits on the policy committee, there's 21 people that sit on that committee. So there's the foundation that we have to fix in order to make this thing work. And
You're on the right trail.
Yes.
You're absolutely on the right trail.
and they've proven they can't operate with this amount of tonnage. And if you look at the violations in terms of the timeline of when this all started, as the tonnage increases, the violations increase, the odor increases, and now we're at 7,500 tons a day. And what's next? They want to continue on that path. They say, well, the damage has already been done. Well, the damage has been done, sure, but they're continuing to bring that in and not effectively operate the facility. This stuff should have been done a long time ago. Why did it take the EPA to mandate them to put 3 foot of soil on there instead of 2 foot? I mean, everyone could smell the smell. They should have done that willingly. But now they don't do anything unless EPA makes them do it, which is unfortunate. Claim they're community partners, but I yet to see it.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Thanks.
One thing I think that does, to extend on your remarks, go a little bit, is the issues at the OSS with the classification and the money. They are symptomatic of a problem at the EPA where they have not been effective in addressing these issues. It's gone on far too long where they are not addressing a simple issue. No, I mean, it's not simple, it's complex, but, a single issue of classification. I mean, Sunny Farms wants the issue resolved, OSS wants the issue resolved, and they have not resolved it. So that's symptomatic of the problem we have in oversight, and I think it's a frustration both on the business side and on the citizen side. So we're going to continue to press that narrative.
And you're talking about the misrepresentation of that 660,000.
That's one issue.
Right.
That's one issue. The other issue is, what is it?
Yeah, classification.
Yeah.
Classification. What is it?
I think the EPA's dropped the ball tremendously.
Yeah. All right. Comments?
Can I just ask a question real quick? I'm sorry, Kraseman.
Sure.
Who regulates the importing of trash?
Interstate commerce.
Is it interstate commerce? I mean, I've never seen so much of it come in to Ohio as I've seen on the railroad.
Railroads are getting rich on that, Chris.
Oh yeah, and it smells too.
It's not regulated.
Right, but I know BFI was getting it out there in Port Clinton, and it stopped, and it was blowing all over the place. But
That's another issue.
Right.
All right. Other. Going to motion for executive session.
One quick thing on follow-up to your answer to me. You said you'd get back to, say, with a number or someone to call.
Yeah.
Would this be publicized so everyone, because everybody's gonna live on the road, is gonna have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how-
Yeah, we'll figure it out. I mean, I don't have an answer.
I'll try to get it in the media.
Yeah, but we'll figure it out because that's important.
That's very
It's a
interesting.
safety issue and a quality of life issue. First?
No, they don't.
Well, I think that's.
You're welcome.